Vinson Hall, and welcome to another episode of Anyone Can Draw, Paint, and Create. Today we're going to take last week's lesson one step further by actually going backwards a little bit. If you recall, we painted and drew a bird, a basic bird shape, and we were talking about the backward letter D for the breastbone and the back, and a C for the wings, and a triangle for the beak. Pretty much a basic bird shape that anyone would recognize as a bird. But today we're going to look at the artistry of birds. And birds are fascinating creatures. There are so many different varieties of birds that you could play around with abstracting parts of it, which we're going to talk about in the video, and or just coming down to basics and drawing part of the bird and making that your whole image. So for today's lesson, I chose the peacock feather. First of all, I think peacocks are fascinating birds, and they're also really loud. I had no idea till I started taking yearly vacations to a farm with my daughters, and we would wake up to the sounds of the peacocks in the barn at dark 30. Really loud, sounded more like a child screaming, and I was stunned. I had no idea how territorial and sometimes aggressive a peacock can be. However, they do have beautiful tail feathers, and when they naturally molt and fall off, collecting them as they lie on the ground was fun for my daughters and made for some interesting drawing lessons for me. So I thought I'd share some of those techniques with you. First, we're going to start off drawing a basic peacock feather. And if you've been following along since the first class, we're just going to need a pencil that makes a line. Or you can use a pen or a screwdriver. Yes, screwdrivers, pins, needles, and maybe not a needle, they're a little too pointy, but a nail or a tack, those can work. You need something that we can make a line with because we're going to do reverse coloring, also called sgraffito, where you etch into the paper and make a texture. You've probably done that unwittingly. If you're drawing or writing a letter to someone on a bumpy surface and all of a sudden your pen or pencil goes over that bump, and it won't make the line because there's already a mark inside the paper where that bump was, that's what we're going to be doing. Only we're doing it on purpose this time to try to create those beautiful peacock feathers, the wispy parts around the bottom. And we're also going to be looking at the inside, the eye of the peacock feather, because that can make some beautiful images as well. But enough of me talking, let's get started on the drawing lesson. Alrighty, so we have our proverbial blank sheet of paper, and I have an image of a peacock feather that I'm looking at from an online photograph. You can also order peacock feathers. I believe some of the craft stores sell them. You can find them online, but working from a photograph is just fine. The first thing I'm going to do is decide where do I want my peacock feather to go on my paper. And I've decided I want it to pretty much take up the whole paper. So I'm going to draw the spine of the feather. And you can see I went darker, lighter, and then darker again. This is completely up to you. We just don't want the line to be a flat same color all the way across. If you were using a pen, we could just press harder or lighter to try to emulate that idea of a varied line weight. That was something we talked about in the first class. After we do that, we're simply going to go from the peacock feather on the bottom and space, I'll do a couple on this side, just space some lines, and you can see I'm getting less pressure as I move up and more pressure as I change my direction a little bit. Some of them can be shorter, some longer. I can start to branch out and have some of these feathers overlap each other. I can go back in and add some more. I'm going to be doing different techniques, so you'll get to try this with a bunch of different materials as well, including color pencil. Well, once we get these basic feathers, and you can see here they're just the wispy feathers at the bottom, we're going to get up to the eye, and the eye is much more intense because that's where all of the detail is. If you want to just sketch an eye to get the general shape where we're going to go with it, we're just going to connect the top almost like the tip of a flame if you were drawing a birthday candle straight up, and just draw this kind of half moon shape on each side that's elongated once you get to the top. Once we're in here, we can fill this in. And peacock eyes have a variety of different ways that they can look. So I will try to turn the camera onto my computer. As you can see, this peacock feather has some gorgeous eye colors. That rich cobalt blue, the light bluish, almost like a cerulean blue. Then it goes almost into the entire gradient of warm colors, yellow, orange, red, and then a yellow halo followed by purples and greens. It's absolutely stunning. This one, somebody drew into a circle, but it's the same idea as the one that I just showed you. It's pretty interesting. If we go to this one, this has cooler colors and a black background. I really like how this eye has this dark shadow here in all of these colors. These are actual peacock feathers. These are photographs. So if you're thinking, well, this is just somebody doing a painting, nope. This one, probably closer to what you're used to seeing in a peacock, a lot more of the browns and greens, but these gorgeous lime green inserts of the eyes. And you can see again this almond shape that delineates the outside of the peacock eye and then the circle. And the one commonality that all these peacock feathers have is there's a bit of a divide in the color section and the innermost part of the eye, almost like a triangle that goes inside. So that's what we're going to be doing on our peacock feather once we get into that inner circle. First, I'm going to draw it with just pencil, and then we'll go back in and try it with colored pencil. Alrighty, so now that you got to see close up what I'm talking about with this inside part, I'm just going to take, we have the outside, that's this long part that we talked about, and then I'm just going to draw some lines inside where I'm going to add some color later, and then I'm going to draw that little round shape that they all seem to have in common, and it seems to be like, almost looks like a molar. I just had root canal, so it reminds me of that. But it has this little hump in the middle, almost like a mountain that goes through. And what we can do then is take our eraser and get rid of that inside part so that this will be a nice thick open eye. And then just taking that same beautiful stroke around the rest of this eye of those feathers, those light airy lines. We can go right off the page with this just to give the top of this feather some weight. And you can see I'm just going down the road to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, just to give a little more dimension to that inside part of the peacock feather. We're going to be using that technique called sgraffito to get some of the really cool textures on the inside of this eye. But right now, I just want to check my drawing and see if I have the basics of the feather. I think I'll give the edge of this feather, the tail feather, a little more weight on the bottom. So I think you can see everything here. We've got just our lines, an almond shape, another inside almond shape. Think of like the Egyptian eye shape, if you will. And then a circle with a little peak in the middle, or the symbol for a dental molar, if you want to call it that. The next thing we can start doing now is thinking about what colors do we want to use. So I have my set of colored pencils, and really any color will work. You can choose whatever you would like to do. I think I'm going to try some of that light green because I really did like the light green. So if you already drew this in pencil, you can just go right over your pencil lines. If you want to start in colored pencil, if you feel more confident, by all means do that. I think the graphite kind of adds some interest to the colors as we go along with the different tones of greens. So I'm just going to go back through my feather and leave some of that graphite show through, because these feathers have very strong variables when it comes to the colors going down the side. And again, as an artwork, you want to make it your own anyway. So I'm more up here because I think I like the intensity of how close together these were. And we're not going to be near done with this yet. Then I'm going to go back in to the base of the peacock feather, and I'm taking my black colored pencil, and you can see I'm skipping some parts. I'm coming through and I'm skipping some parts, and then I'm getting darker down here, and I'll get dark as I come up in through the middle of the eye. I'm also going to use this black to help define texture. So even though I have the graphite pencil, which is a blackish color, but graphite's kind of more silver, I'm taking my pencil and just making very deliberate angled marks. Now, if this bothers your wrist, and I understand how that can work, you might want to turn your paper upside down or sideways and just come towards yourself, because this motion is much less taxing on your wrist and it allows greater control. Frankly, I even like doing it this way better. So I think I'll keep it here for a minute. All I'm doing is just making lines going straight down. Notice I still haven't addressed this part. We're going to get to that in a minute, but I just thought I would give this feather a little more oomph as we go down through. Okay, I'll turn it back this way so I can work on this eye. The eye has a lot of texture to it, and at the end of this video, I'll have a close-up picture of the one I showed you for a minute there on my computer screen. But there's very, very tight-knit lines that we're going to put in. You could draw them in. You could use a pen or a very sharp pencil point. But I'm going to use a screwdriver. I have a Phillips head and a flat head. Either one will work. So I'm going to start with my Phillips head and just draw some lines. You're not going to see anything, but your pencil will see it. And I'm just following the shape of what I drew here. When I go over this now, let's see, we'll try this light blue. And I color over it going the opposite direction. You're going to start to see some really beautiful texture coming up. Hopefully you can see that already, but I'm going to zoom in here as much as I can without losing focus. I'll show a close-up and I'll take a picture of this when we're done. But you can start to see as I color over those lines, it's like magic. I get these little texture lines that just start to appear. This is called sgraffito. And in painting, you know, you can scrape through with a palette knife. You can use other things, but here we can just go ahead and use a colored pencil. Going the opposite direction only intensifies those lines because you're going against the proverbial grain. So you should be able to start seeing a little bit of the color in there. Then let's see, I'll try some orange. I'm gonna make the inside of this eye on my feather a little bit brighter. So I'm using orange, but I already have those lines. Now, the really cool thing about sgraffito is once you do it one time and get this white, you can go back in, I'm gonna use the Phillips head this time, and get more lines that are gonna leave the blue show through and the yellow, but now I'm gonna add another color on top. There we go. So I pretty much scratched that. You could do this down here if you wanted, but I'm not going to bother doing that. I'll move the camera up a little bit more so you can see the whole feather. So I scraped this in. Now I can go back in with some other colors, maybe pink. Why not? It's going to change to like a purpley lavender. But what I did now by scratching a second time is protect my blue, so there'll always be some beautiful little blue lines showing through on my feather as well. I like this pink. I'm just gonna give a little more pink up here on the top. And then I'm gonna go back in with my black color pencil and define this inner eye a little bit more. So it looks a little more, oh wow, you can really see those sgraffito lines now. And the nice thing is, because I did want only a little bit of yellow to show through, that's exactly what I got. But it looks like a million little peacock feathers all together, and that I probably would have spent hours drawing, but we both know I didn't because this took really little time at all. And then I can go back in again with the blue, brighten this up. Once those lines are in, they're in. So you just have to be sure you've planned where you want them to go. Maybe brighten it up again with a little bit of pink going around the outside. You can choose whatever colors you want. I'm just feeling a little bit of pink on this one. And then I think I will take a green and kind of go around the edge of this with the green to just help define this eye shape a little bit more. Maybe even go back in with the graphite just to bring this out. Got my shape. Now the fun starts, if it hasn't already. You can start taking some of the colors you used in here and really jazz up your feather. I'm gonna add a little bit of blue. And then on the very tips up here, I'm gonna switch it up completely and take a lavender and just add some lavender coming out of the top of my feather. The key is heavy at the stem or the spine of the feather and lighter strokes as you go out. So I'm just releasing pressure. If you want to practice this on a blank sheet of paper, just practice doing this. Dark light, just like let go. You can even pull your hand up off the paper if it helps. That's an easy way to get that light, wispy line shape. We'll say that one 3 times fast. Wispy line shape. There we go. Okay, so I think that's pretty good for what I want to do with a basic feather. So you can see here, actually I'll hold it up this way, and we have our eye of the peacock feather and the basic wispiness of it. That didn't take much time at all. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on drawing that basic feather because we're going to do another one, actually 2 more. That way we can build up what was a sketch of one peacock feather into an actual drawing, and I'm going to use some different techniques. Let's get started. I have the finished feather here that we just looked at. So now I'm going to start by using my screwdriver to make a white stem. So I want to have this spine here was a varied line weight of a color. Now I'm going to draw another feather, maybe coming out this way a little more. And I'm gonna start by drawing, pressing pretty hard. Maybe I'll make it even fatter by using the whole one. Now it depends on how wide you have your flathead screwdriver. The wider the flathead, the wider the line. But by doing that, and then hopefully, if this works, we're gonna change colors. I'm gonna go to a darker green. If I color over it, oh yeah, that worked really nicely. I can actually get a white line that's going to be my feather spine. The key is to be able to see which direction I went with that. So you kind of have to remember where you are with your line. I always like doing these coloring white lines by doing this. It's like magic to me, and it's fun. I hope you can see this. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more. Like right here, isn't that cool? No matter how hard I'm pressing, that white line stays white on my paper, and that's going to become the basis for my new feather. And I like here how it's a little thinner as it tapered out, and I think that might be where I stopped right there. So I'll move the camera back a little bit. There we go. So now from here, I'm going to do the exact same thing we just did, only I'm using a darker green. I'm gonna make some of them longer, and I'm overlapping with my other feather. That's what's going to unify this drawing, and it's going to give it some kind of a base for the third and final feather. Because in art, it's always better to have odd numbers than even. It makes it more visually interesting and aesthetically pleasing. Oh, I can see I made more of a line. That's great. I'm glad I did. It's fun to play where does the line end as I color down here. So now I'm just doing that and then bringing that same color out with this. That'll just give the feather some depth. Now where I went up here, I'm going to leave this as my point for my next eye. And now rather than pencil, I'm just drawing that eye in with a colored pencil. I'm going to have this one a lot lighter. So I'm going to use yellow. And I'm not doing sgraffito right here because I just want to get this yellow color in first. And then I want to use a light blue. You can start with a circle. I am going to use that sgraffito in a minute, but I'm just getting some basic colors in. And then going back to my black and getting that little half shape in that we were looking at on the first one. Now I'll just switch it up. I'll go to my Phillips head screwdriver and add some lines so that when I take my next color over this, which is going to be more of an orange, I'll still have some texture that shows up, here's my orange, that shows those lines and those very close together feathers. This is really easy and it's really fun, especially if you're new to the whole drawing scene. Why not give this a try? It really can be quite beautiful and different than always drawing people, houses, buildings, animals, drawing parts of the animal or the feather. By the way, I should mention, we will be doing whole entire peacock drawings downstairs in the Art Center this week in the drawing class. So if you'd like to join us, you are welcome to do that. Now I'm going to take some purple and make the tips of this feather go right off my page. Don't worry about that. It's always nice to have things go off the page. It kind of makes it look like it's not too framey and too centered. Just I'm going to do less colors on this because I have my white there and I really like that. Just do a few purple, and I think I'll do a little bit of a purple outline here, and then I'm going to call this one a day too. I think that's pretty good. Do some purple at the bottom. Okay, now we have 2 feathers, so like I said, 3rd time's a charm, and we're going to go the opposite direction because if I had 3 going this way, it would be way too heavy. So I am going to probably do the same thing again, only where I already have color, the stem is going to disappear. But I'm going to hold this flat and draw a smaller feather. This one's going to end right there. Let's go over that again. And for this one, we'll use brown. We'll do the traditional peacock feather. And I'm doing the same thing I just did. I'm coloring over my line that I made that stem, but when I come over here, it's gonna also blend in with my other feathers, and that's fine because I do want it to look like it's behind this one. You can see how no matter what I do on that one that was white here, this color won't go over it. And come right up here to where my peacock feather is gonna be. So for this one, I'm going to go more neutral, more brown. You can be as colorful as you want. I like to sometimes switch it up to neutrals because too much color to me starts to get a little busy, but it's a personal preference. And this one is going to go off the page way down here. So you can see we're just doing all these lines just the same. And then this one, do the same thing again, draw an oval. Draw an oval inside the oval. Now I'm going to just keep taking brown around the top of this. This is not the flamboyant peacock. This is the understated peacock feather, this one. And I'll use something I haven't used yet. We'll go with red. Color in a few feathers in here. Come down a little bit. I am going to break up this brown just a bit. And since I used a lot of greens on this side, red is a nice complement because red and green are complements. And I already still have some of those scratchy marks from using my screwdriver. And I'll go back in with my black color in the eye. And I really do like this blue, so I'm going to keep the blue going on this one. Because if you use these colors, it's always nice to use them again somewhere else. Maybe just throw in a few blues, darken this stem just a little bit more. Again, our white will never go dark, but I can get darker just to get some drama in the center. And get that a little bit more there too. And there you have it. we've pretty much finished our peacock drawing with 3 completely distinct, different styles of feathers. That was pretty much it for the drawing segment of the peacock, but we're going to use an eraser to add a little more interest and to soften some of those lines and really add some texture to the feathers. I already started erasing this top one out because the more I looked at it, I felt like that got just a little too heavy. I didn't like it. So the beauty of the eraser is it'll erase, but you'll always have those scratch marks. Like I said, once you scratch into the paper, it will never go away. So I'm lightening this up a little bit with my eraser, and then I'm going to add some other colors. But I also wanted to show you how just taking your eraser and lightly going into this is going to soften some of these feathers and just kind of give you a real wispy look, like there's more to the feathers than what you might have had. And it also, get rid of some of these crumbs, much like a blender, will pull, there we go, the colored pencil away if you're not trying to totally erase. So it really gives you that faded into the air. I'll try it down here so you can see. It's just pulling these lines and just giving you a really soft, beautiful edge. One of my favorite classes in college in my drawing classes was when we had to do entire assignments drawing with an eraser. Of course you used graphite or colored pencil, but you made the drawing by erasing out. And I've always found that to be a challenge and also to be fun. I wrinkle my paper. All right, so I'm gonna go back in on this one where I feel it just got too heavy. And again, those beautiful sgraffito lines are still there. I'm just gonna make it more blue and just add a little bit of black. Yeah. So if you don't like something you did, that happens to all artists all the time. Ask any artist down in the art studio. They'll find a million things they'd like to change with whatever they've done after they do it. It's just the nature of being an artist. There we go. All right, I like that a little bit better. I might even just take out a little bit here in the stem to add some dimension, just coming along the inside here. And use this for highlights. I could even do it over here on this one a little bit. There we go. Okay. Sometimes you have to know when to stop, and this is where I'm stopping on my peacock feather drawing. So as you can see, something as simple as one feather can inspire you to fill up a whole page with color, form, shapes, repetition, all of the different elements of good design and good drawing. So here's mine. I guess you can see there. We've got the feathers going different directions, 2 going one going down. Always good to switch it up. I like using the different colors. What follows next is going to be some inspirational pictures of different kinds of peacock feathers that you might try to draw on your own. Of course, if you've got your phone or your computer, you can just Google a peacock feather and look at one for visual reference that way, unless you happen to have a peacock as a pet. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this week's lesson. Again, if you want to learn how to add the feathers to an entire peacock bird, that's what we're working on in the drawing class for the beginner drawers on every Wednesday. Sorry about that. Almost had a brain freeze on what day we do drawing. It's Wednesdays from noon to 2. And of course, beginner painting is 10 to 12 on Wednesday, and beginner to intermediate photography is 2 to 4 on Wednesday. So shortly after you're watching this video, because I think it airs on Wednesdays. Tuesday, of course, is intermediate to advanced painting, 12 to 2, and then advanced photography, 2 to 4. Look forward to seeing you down in the art studio. Remember, we are following all the CDC guidelines, so you do have to wear a mask, and we're maintaining social distancing, but we are having a lot of fun. Ask anyone who's come down the last 2 weeks. It's so nice to be back among everyone at Vinson Hall. Till next week, I will see you then.